music teachers teach cognitive and affective. That other teachers, that the message is what's important. Music teachers, the messenger is what is important. Isn't this interesting? Other teachers teach what? Music teachers what and why. Other teachers teach knowledge. Music teachers teach knowledge and wisdom. And I was just going, well, yeah. Doesn't everybody know this? Apparently not. Um, so they're going through all of this, and I'm shouting. Now, all the PD sessions I've done lately, and I'm sure that's true for all of you too. The music teachers are telling me, oh, this doesn't work and this doesn't work. And well, God, and I'm like, you're still miles ahead of everybody else. Um, because and music teachers, we hear mistakes, right? We find out what's wrong. Everybody's on G, somebody's on G sharp. Our ear will go right to that G sharp. We need to fix that. We always look at, how we can make things better. So this teacher, somebody asked me the other day, do you make these stories up? No, I'm not that smart. This teacher calls me the other day and she's got a great band program. I mean, really, it's model. So her principal called her in and said, you're the expert on this thing. And I think the whole purpose of the reason I'm telling you this is it comes back to the Stephen Covey thing of choose to understand before being understood. Before you react, proact, get behind the eyes of the listener. If we could get all our music teachers just go, hang on, before you just go off, stop. What's the other, why is this conversation going on? So her principal calls her in, who she likes, and said, you're the expert. Now, what I'm going to tell you is probably not going to make you really happy. But this is the way it is. First of all, we're going to have to cut your top band in half for social distancing. So in the room, you can. And she said right away, she was like, what? And then he said, and you're not going to get to meet every day. It's going to be every other day. And she said, she just starts boiling. And then he said, and I know you thought your budget was this, but it's actually going to be this, based on what we're getting in to shelve out to everybody. And she said, I was just furious. And he said, now, again, you're the expert. That's why I want to talk to you. Can you make it work under these circumstances? And she said, I said, absolutely not. There's no way. He goes, well, thanks for your input. He said, come back tomorrow. Let me see what I can do. So she comes back the next day and he said, I think I got it figured out. He said, I'm going to put you in charge of senior online testing and we'll suspend the band for this semester. And she said, there was that moment. And then she said, tears just started. And she said, this is what she said to the principal. She said, I'm so sorry. She said, you're trying to figure out, can you feed kids in the cafeteria? Is this room even big enough to have this class? What do you do on school buses? She said, I never even stopped to think what you were going through. So she leaves. Of course, she's all upset and everything. Now, to her credit, she went back and he reinstated the band. But I think if we, for all of us who are just fighting to hang on to everything, particularly the teachers who are all remote, they're doing everything virtual, it's just hang on. Because every time I do one of those principals things, they really care. They really do care. And they're busting their whole ears to try to make anything work. And in most cases, they're trying to protect the band or the choir or the orchestra or whatever program is in the arts. They're really doing their best. So that's that. There's some good news in that. And here's the last one, and then I'll get out of your way. You all have these teachers. I'm not going to tell you anything that you do. So I'm doing a PD session, right? And it was all the arts, the dance and the theater and all the music. I mean, it was great. And these teachers were phenomenal. And they're saying, we could do this. And you know what, if we could line this up and we could, if you do this in your class, then we can bring it in. It'll all be, and except one teacher. And every time they would come up with something, there was always, and then she would tell them why it wouldn't work. Well, so after about 20 minutes of this enthusiasm, you can just feel the air start to go out of the balloon. And people are like, well, I'm not even going to put anything up there because she's going to trash it. So you can't, after a while, you can't ignore it. I mean, it's the elephant in the living room, right? So, okay, let's take a break. And I said, ma'am, would you mind just staying online for a little bit? No, no. So that everybody gets offline. I said, I know you're depressed. I know you're upset. I know you're anxious. But I said, what is going on with you? Your colleagues are doing everything they can to try to hold this thing, get Humpty Dumpty back together again till we get on the other side. I said, what's going on? She said, I can't do this without laughing. She said, well, I didn't sign up to teach in a pandemic. And I'm thinking, well, who did? Did any of you? Did any of you say, could you give me your contract back here? I would like to teach in a COVID virus environment, climate. Yes, thank you. Lady, it's raining on all of us. But she was only thinking about herself. Now, the other part that she never thought of was the damage she was doing to other people. I mean, she was probably a great teacher, right? But just to go, if there's ever a time we need to lock arms in solidarity, this is it. And if we can do it, which most of the teachers are, when we get on the other side, we are going to be a heck of a lot stronger, because it's awakening people to, whoa, music's different. The arts are different. Where they always kind of knew it, and I think they gave it lip service and all this thing. Now it's loud because those are the kids that are hanging on. And I know everybody's concerned about recruitment and retention. I'm there, I'm with you, but the music people are still miles ahead. Now, there's the last story, and then I will get out of your way. This one director, in fact, I think maybe Scott, I was telling the kids about this. He was telling his high school kids, and this is band again. I could lie and say it's someone else, but it was band. And he's telling his high school kids about, he's so concerned about getting the beginners started that go from the 5th grade to 6th grade, and they wouldn't know, and how would they test, and they couldn't get to the kids and all this sort of thing. So he said his student leaders, you can tell Ellie this too. He said his student leaders are like, and they're like, well, I think we can help you. And well, whatever you guys can do. Only kids would do this. One of the student leaders, his mother was the assistant principal at the elementary school. And it's like elementary, middle, high school. It was one, unified system. So the kid goes to his mom and says, can I have the list of the 5th graders and their families and parents? And she goes, yeah, sure. They divide the list. They call every family. These kids do. And it's like, hi, Mrs. Miller. My name's Sarah. I know that Emily's going to be a 6th grader next year, and I'm just curious what instrument she would like to play. I'm a flute player myself, and if she'd like to play flute, I'd like to talk to her about that. As though, with the assumption it's going to happen, right? And the mother's like, Ellen? Yeah, I'd like to talk to her. Hi, Ellen. I was just talking to your mom about which instrument you're going to play when you... He said he normally starts about 45, 50 kids. He's over 100 right now. And I'm like, he goes, they did it. The kids were the advocacy. And then he got so excited. I said, well, when we get out of this, I said, you going to recruit that way next year too? And he goes, yeah, you bet. So out of this, if you squeeze it hard enough, there's some good stuff. And I think, as the one director said, I've never gotten to know my kids any better, because I'm taking time to talk to them online on one-to-one. I would never do that. Or the one the other day that said, you know what? Our kids decided they wanted to do a history of our band, and they're calling the alums and everything. It's just, I think, have to turn that compass a little bit with a different destination, but it's still a good one. And, you guys are champions. That's why you do it in the first place. So if Scott or somebody, whoever, if you send me a list, everybody's on here. I looked up some advocacy stuff the other day, because if there's ever a time we should be doing advocacy for the parents, it's now, right? We get in here, mom and dad. And I just did this for fun. And you can do it. I Googled benefits of music education. How many hits do you think there were? You're going to be wrong, whatever you say. 703 million. 703 million hits, justifying how important music. You couldn't read that in a lifetime. So I picked out 5 of the really knockout punches. And Scott, if you'll send me the list of everybody, I'll send you those, and then you can pass them on to all of your teachers and friends and parents and everything else like that. But I wouldn't have looked at that otherwise. I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have dug in to other teachers and what they were thinking, and because I just they're just gonna, they get your program ready, right? And now it's like, no, 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 no. Let's get down, because we're bringing some really important news to parents. Really important news. So now this time to do it. So Scott, thanks so much for inviting me to do this to all of you guys. It's like family reunion when I get to see you guys. You be sure to tell Ellie I said hi too. And next time around, I'll see you. All right.
Hey, thanks.
Take care, gang.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take care. Yeah. So he's off to another conference. He was just able to squeeze us in for a few minutes, but I am always appreciative for anytime you get to hear him. It's a little shot in the arm, a little boost. He's always got great stories. So, and I'm sure that if we had some specific questions or whatever, he would be happy to do that. And he'll respond I'll send him everybody's email, and he'll respond, and then you'll have his email. And if you want to talk with him, he will, I promise you 100%, he will get back to you. He's tremendous about that, as for as busy of a guy and as well known of a person he is. Well, so I don't know how you follow that. I guess I'll see you guys next time. But anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this. I really appreciated several of you came back with comments about this was, some really interesting reading and some, neat dive into some of these topics. And reading your responses even made, it kept making me reflect on various things too about my own leadership style, because it's not one thing. And I think almost everybody commented on that. It's not one thing. We are different types of leaders in different situations, which is that whole situational leadership thing. It was really, I don't know what the right word is. Encouraging, I guess, is the best word, that we are all in this pandemic together, as Tim was saying. And it was really encouraging to read about servant leadership, and some of you really took a lot to heart and talked about your faith and how your leadership style is a part of your faith. And I really appreciated everyone's courage to really put thought into that, and hopefully you came out of this, changed a little bit. I know I do. Every time I do this module and I revisit some of those websites, or I look for some new things to add in, I come out changed too. So I thought this is going to kind of be a conversation tonight. We have a little bit of time here just to talk about leadership in general, and you could share any insights you found about yourself, or just found about thoughts on leadership in general. Any stories you want to share about having to really step up and put those leadership skills into action. So is anything you really want to share that you thought about through this module is just going to be open for a bit here, and then I've got a couple of questions for some things for later. But anybody want to kick us off?
I'll share. One thing that I wrote about when I was writing like my philosophy of leadership, and it kind of stemmed from writing it itself, was that leadership is a practice. It's not necessarily something that people talk about, like, are you a natural leader and those sorts of things. While I think that can happen, it's also something that you can develop within yourself, and kind of putting yourself in situations where you can serve as a leader. That was interesting to me, to read about the different philosophies of leadership and how you can not only grow as a leader, but really practice those skills in different situations of your life.
Absolutely. And that makes me think a little bit how personality is somewhat related to leadership, but at the same time, it isn't. You can learn about leadership and put yourself into different personalities can be very effective leaders as well. Judy Bush, I know probably nobody, maybe Abby knows Judy Bush and Phil and Henry might, but Judy Bush is the past NAFME North Central Division president, and she was a music teacher for 35 years in the Lincoln, Nebraska public schools, and is now an arts administrator there. And she and I've done this leadership workshop together at NAFME about introverts, and how to be a leader as an introvert and how to be a leader as an extrovert, and that both can be incredibly successful. And just the different sorts of personalities, and some of it's stereotypical. You think of an introvert, you think of somebody very quiet and shy, and that may not be the case at all. It very well may be they're just a really good listener and are kind of waiting to to formulate their opinion, whereas stereotypically the extrovert's always the first one, blah 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 blah. And we often associate a stronger leader as that person who's off the cuff going, yeah, blah blah blah, this is what we need to do and here we go, let's roll. And and quite often that's not the case. So I think breaking down those stereotypes is really important too, in regard to personality, and then the various styles and strategies of leadership. So good point, Emily. Thank you. Somebody else want to share any thoughts on any of this, or just an experience?
I'll say a thing or two. A couple of little things. When I was at Temple, Janet Yamron was the choir director, and she said that she had a grad student who wanted to be a conductor, and he saw the effect that she had as a leader of her choir, and he tried to copy her every move. He tried to, insert her way of conducting into his own, and he was completely ineffective at it. She said that he was so frustrated because he was doing everything that she was doing, but he wasn't having the same response from the group. And that story always kind of stuck with me, because I thought, I might not do everything the same way as my sister does it, or the same way as, Joe director down the street does it. But what I do comes from my strengths and my personality, and I work with it, and I make it into what I need it to be, or what is most effective for my kids. And I always thought that was a pretty cool story, so I wanted to share it. And I have one other little thing. On the side, when I'm not, job hunting, I do a lot of work coding, writing programming for some collaborative projects online. And in that world, I see so much of people hoarding and hiding their own skills and not wanting to teach other people the skills, because they don't want anybody out there, I guess, who is better than them, or to give them competition. But I find that my leadership style is more along the lines of, hey, I want my kids to be better at this than I am. If I can teach all of my kids to be better at music than I am, then I've won the game. So just a couple little observations.
Absolutely. That makes me think of something I've been dealing with here recently, actually, with NAFME. And that's so in the position I'm in now as president-elect, I get to watch firsthand how Mackie Spradley is leading the association and doing all this. And something that she's been talking a lot about, which, don't ask me why, but I'll just be honest. I'm just going to be very honest about this. She talks a lot about making sure the people with the expertise in certain areas are the ones that are involved in the discussion. And, that sounds like really simple, right? Like, of course, you want the best of general music folks to be on the general music council, or you think you'd want but she's taking that even a step further into our work with equity and diversity, which we're going to talk about in our fourth module a little bit. And for me personally, to your point, Heather, it has made me realize that although, like, I know a lot about a lot of things, I'm not an expert in a lot of things, and to be opening yourself up as a leader to say, I need I need to ask for help. And I, yes, I want to learn and I want to grow, but I'm never going to be an expert in what it's like to be an African-American person, and all that they've gone through in that area of diversity and so on. And I'll never understand that. I can read a lot about it and I can know a lot about it, but I'm never going to have that expertise. And that's just one example. There's, a ton of examples, but I think that we do want to surround, as leaders, I think great leaders recognize where their strengths are and where their areas are that they can continue to grow. And that was hard for me because I kept thinking, I'll be president, I'll get to do this and form committees and do that, and kind of be in control a little bit. And what I'm learning watching Mackie is that it's more about getting the right people to the right places, even at that high level. There's no expectation. I think the expectation was on me. Sorry, I'm having like a moment with myself here, but the expectation was what I was putting on myself to need to know everything to be able to be the president of NAFME in a year and a half. And it's not that at all. And I think that it was kind of relief, in a way. So I get that, Heather. Thank you. Anybody else want to share anything, stories, thoughts?
The thing that stuck out for me was, I think it was a Dr. Tim thing, but I don't remember, but something about focusing on the solution instead of the problem. And that was really poignant for me because this year has been so filled with problems. And, I just come home at the end of every day and think, if I could just, have more rehearsal time and all these things, then life would be better. But that was a great challenge to me to remember, okay, there are solutions and I need to start orienting myself towards thinking about those instead of just rehashing the problems every week and getting stuck there.
Indeed, for sure. And it's easy to get stuck there too. I don't know about all your schools, but my school is we're back full in person. I don't think that had happened the last time we chatted. So everybody 100% every day. And which I know some of you may have already been there, but that was new to us in January. But we haven't had yet a whole week where we've all been there because of COVID or because of weather or whatever. And it gets frustrating. And we just really want to just feel some normal, some consistency, whatever it is. And so I hear you. It's, always thinking about the solution for sure.
Yeah, to add to that, Kelsey, I'm sorry to jump in. My observation in our school district is that, with other programs and other subject areas, it seems like the administration of the schools are very much involved in finding solutions, whereas and at least in our case, and I'm sure it happens with you folks as well, is that it's been put upon the leadership in the music department to figure out the workarounds. So it's been a year long coming up with a plan, a process, working with our colleagues even more so than we do in the past, and figuring out solutions, which I enjoy the challenge of it, but after a while it is exhausting to constantly, but I think the administration appreciates, and the community certainly does appreciate that our music department is working really hard to come up with solutions and ideas to make this year work as best as we can. But it's been an observation of mine that we are more, and I think that there's a natural leadership built into what we do to figure out, to make our programs work without as much assistance from administration.
Anybody else want to share something?
I was just going to say, Kelsey, I think what you referenced was from Dr. Tim's book. And one of the other things that he kind of mentions in the PDF that Scott shared was focusing on creating energy and enthusiasm. And that's something that I've noticed this year has been even more difficult. I think people always talk about like sometimes the dangers of going to the faculty lunchroom and listening to teachers complain about certain things going wrong in their classrooms or students or whatever that might be. And just focusing on, instead of focusing on the problem, looking to ways that you can create that energy and enthusiasm was something that Dr. Tim also suggested in the reading.
And that goes back to the why, and some of the Simon Sinek stuff that you may have checked out, that it goes back to our why. Why do we get into this in the first place? What is it about music that drives us? Obviously no one signed up for the pandemic, but at the same time, what got us excited about it 20 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago when we got into this in the first place. And that why can really help to bring the energy, enthusiasm back, even on the rough days. And and the other thing is, I think it's important that we recognize when the days are rough, and just kind of sit in it for a little while, and don't necessarily. It's natural. It's normal. It's the same. It's all of us are going through it. I don't think anybody's every day waking up like, woohoo, here we go again. It's I don't think that's the case, and just let it be, and just keep your why centered on your why.
One thing that we haven't talked about that I talked about a little bit and kind of related to what you guys are saying now is I feel like one of the most important characteristics or I guess purposes of a leader is to be a model for what you what environment you want to create, or finding the solutions or being positive about things. I know for me that's something I've always taken seriously as a leader and tried to prioritize as a leader. But yeah, I'm modeling how I want it to sound or how I want it to sing, how I want them to sing it, right? But also modeling to my students and my groups about priorities and what's important, and creating the culture that we want to have where everybody is a member of this. And recently we were just talking about, I just got my students in a conversation about value in process over performance, and we were discussing different videos of a performance. We saw one that was really good and one that was really bad, and we were like, well, why, so I was asking them questions. Well, why would they share this? If it wasn't good, why did they make it public, and why is it on YouTube? And is there value in what they were doing for them? Is there value in their process for them? And is that so we just, and of course, like when you bring these things up, they have excellent, poignant, wonderful things to say, and so just I guess serving as a model, like these are things that I'm going through in this time of like process and performance. I don't need to just value performance here, but can I find areas of value in the process along the way? So I mean that essence of modeling, or that aspect of modeling, can be, I think, really powerful, because if I'm saying things to my students but I'm schlumping around in my office and I'm not greeting them when I come in, and I'm not being a part of that, or they know that something challenging happened and they're seeing me respond negatively, then that's, I might as well stay home. Yeah, so. Oops, Scott, I think you're muted.
You're muted. Thank you. I was gonna say, I wanted to add one thing to that. I thought that was great, Sarah. I really appreciate that sharing, because it's so true. But the other side of it is, if you are having a bad day and you are slumping around in your office, just be honest with them. 99% of the time, it's not because of them, right? It's because of something else. The office called and blah, blah, blah happened, or this parent upset you because of blah, blah, blah. It's usually not the students. And so sometimes I find that just being really honest, if I'm having difficulties about something, and they get that, they appreciate that. And that vulnerability gives that authenticity. And several of you talked about trust in your writing, and how trust is so huge. And right now, boy, our students need that more than ever, is that aspect of trust, and that we're going to be there for them. What consistency there is, that they can count on us as their teacher, and all of this is part of being a leader. I think we often can just think of good teaching as leadership, right? Somebody else want to jump in?
Oh, I was just going to piggyback on that real quick. We actually had a death in our family on Tuesday. So I was going to use my bereavement days, and I really hummed and hawed, like, should I tell the kids why there's no lesson? Should I not? And I finally just put it out there on the Google Classroom, listen, this is going on with me. Just use it as a review week. And I mean, the outpouring I got even, from fifth graders, from parents, from just so much, like you're saying, like so much understanding. And I was like, oh, I think I made the right move, because you do have to let yourself be vulnerable sometimes. You do. And then they'll understand.
I don't need to fill the dead space every time, so feel free, anybody, to jump in.
I'll step in then. Oh.
Yeah, please.
So one of the, I think it was a quiz, talked about what leadership style are you? And at the end of it, I got autocratic, and I went, oh crap, that's not good. But then I thought about how everything as a teacher, when we are the one who knows teaching to those who don't know, it tends to be often one-sided. And I kind of, in the back of my head, realized that would come to pass. That, the one who knows has to deliver the information and has to, at the bare bones level, I am above hypothetically, and you are below, and I do whatever. And a cat just jumped on the table. Sorry if you see a tail. But it was a wake-up call, and B, a time to put things in context a little bit. I went to IUP, and Ryan Beacon, who unfortunately left very recently, was really, really great at involving all of us students, all of us participants in the ensemble through the rehearsal process and through the decisions he was making. And I think at the time, I just thought, oh, he's teaching me how to be a teacher. But in reality, he's just modeling exactly, what we should be doing. Those kinds of decisions aren't reserved for college students. Those kinds of discussions aren't reserved for those who will eventually go to be the one who knows. They're for everybody, because everyone is a seed that's waiting to be grown. And so, A, the autocratic thing was a bit of a wake-up call, but B, I kind of knew it was coming. So there you go.
But isn't there a little bit of all of us that likes that? I mean, come on, be honest. I sometimes I'll say, do that one more time. I just want to hear this one more time. And it's for me, because I want to, that sounded so amazing. And, there's just a little, there is that in there, but I think it's, David, to your point, it's recognizing it and being honest about it with you and your students. And then what do we do with that information? If I say, do this one more time for me, because you guys just sound so amazing, and I want to feel that one more time, and I hope you're all feeling it too. Maybe that's a little less selfish than just saying one more time,
I think there's also merit to like what we were saying in the beginning of you utilize different leadership styles at different times. So I don't think it's bad necessarily to have days where you're more old school and like that. It can work, but there also has to be days, especially in this pandemic, where we're a little bit more democratic. And maybe, just like teaching anything else, it depends the day, depends the kids, depends you. So there's that cat too.
And really, that's kind of what getting at some of what we'll talk about in the next module, and that's culturally responsive teaching, and how do, within a culture, there's many, many cultures, it's not just your community, not just your school, not just your choir room or your orchestra room or your music classroom, there's cultures within and subcultures within. And so, like you're saying, Kyle, how you respond, you can respond to some students in a certain way that you may not be able to respond to other students in that same way, even just joking around. Some kids I can tease and joke a little bit, and other kids I need to be a little more careful how I would say something. And we just kind of you learn some of those things, and then what we do with that becomes the leadership, or the teaching practice, of what we do with that information. So I think that's great.
I really enjoyed reading about the different leadership styles. When we go into our classroom, we have all of these leadership styles within our classroom all at once. And I think we would all agree that music teachers, big personalities, pretty strong. Obviously, we have introverts, extroverts, we're all different, but I would argue that there's a tremendous number of strong leaders. And I would also argue that we're pretty good at coming together and working together like a body, each different parts functioning for different purposes, making something better and stronger. So understanding these leadership styles is going to help me a lot, bring those skills out of my students and give them the best possibility to be excellent leaders.
That's a good point to maybe pivot a little bit for the conversation, and that is, how many of you try to foster leadership within your ensembles, within your music classes? Like, is that something that you intentionally do? And in what ways do we train them, again, back to the autocratic, here's the information, and try to deliver that? But, so I'd be interested to hear what folks do in their programs to develop student leaders.
I just started because of this module. So just for the past few weeks, I only see my band students once a week these days. So just at the beginning of rehearsal, I put up a quote or a big idea and I say, let's think about this. What does it look like for you to do this? And how can you be a leader? So pretty quick and easy, but.
Yeah, cool. What can you give us an example of one you put up, like an idea?
Yeah, the first one that I put up was the quote that you shared about leaders do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether they want to or not. As a little encouragement for them to do their practice logs, but for other things as well. And then the last one I shared was the one that I shared with you about focusing on the solution instead of the problem.
Yeah.
I think I've been pretty bad about preparing my student leaders over this past couple of years, in my first couple of years of teaching, if I'm being honest. And that was kind of reflective after reading these articles and stuff. It was like, I guess, leadership trial by fire, basically, of like, go ahead and lead. I mean, that, when you're learning to teach, that's honestly, you don't know how to do it until you start doing it, in some aspects. But I was, thinking about it after reading all that stuff. And we just found out, well, not just, but my wife is pregnant and going to be having a baby right on July 30th. So right for the start of band camp. And I made a side comment to my drum majors, you're going to have to really, step it up and be leaders this year. And I turned the corner. I was like, I better teach them how to do like everything. So, because it's going to be necessary. So I know I'm going to be needing to have some, weekly sessions with my, my section leaders and my drum majors and meeting with them. I did meet with them a couple times, throughout July, but maybe even more so this year, since there's a good chance I won't be around. But then that's something I'll probably just end up doing in the future. So.
Yeah. Cool. Hi, Tina.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Sorry, I'm late to the party.
We're good. We're talking about leadership, like kind of how we foster leadership with our students, and that sort of thing. And anybody can throw anything else in here if you want, but
Something I've done recently. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. Something I've done recently. I tried to do officers in my choir. Wasn't great. It was fine, and they had great roles and they were working hard, but it was almost an extra piece that wasn't necessary. It wasn't as helpful. So I thought about, how can I utilize leadership in my ensembles in a different way? I started doing sectionals with kids who were going to festivals. They went from this small rural school with a very small choir to this PMEA festival, where it was almost like a culture shock of, wow, we can create music like this. We can do this. They're working harder. They're truly a step above, the students who just show up because they like to sing. And so after we get through a chunk of music, we'll do sectionals, and they will lead the sectionals, and I will monitor and go around. And that's been a really cool way to empower them to be leaders while being musicians at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. PMEA has those festivals really impact in even more ways than I even think about. Go ahead, Aaron. You were going to jump.
No, I was just going to say, our program, it's a larger program, so we're able to have like a pretty extensive student leadership in our band and our orchestra. We have 2 separate councils. The councils will meet, for those organizations, and then occasionally we'll have a group band and orchestra council meetings. But we really let them do as much as they possibly can. We let the students choose what kind of fundraisers. We let the students choose how to, how to deal with recruitment and retention, and we let them devise a plan and follow through with all the operations. And we tell them from day one, it's not our program, it's your program. And then even after, like during band camp, after rehearsals, we'll have a small little council meeting and, how did rehearsal go? And if it went well, what went well? How do we, what do we need to do to copy this for next rehearsal? And sometimes rehearsals really didn't go well. And every day we teach them how to evaluate and assess how the council acted during rehearsal and if there's anything that we can do to improve. So we just make sure that they know it's their organization from day one.
Yeah, and that comes back to another one of those in the readings about a vision and leaders having the vision, but it's a shared vision, right? It can't just be what, if it's all what Aaron says, then the students may or may not buy into it, or some will buy into it and some won't. But if it's that shared vision, that's where, you get more students to buy in and more follow through and more connection and, all the way down through.
Yeah, I want to add to what Scott said, Aaron. The student ownership of the program is so important that they buy into the program. As Scott said, at the school I work at, we have a very large marching band of 400 students with a staff of only like 5 or 6. And if it wasn't for the student leadership, the organization would not function. So what we devised is a week-long student leadership camp before we even have band camp. And we teach our students how to be leaders, teach them how to be teachers. So when band camp starts, they are very much running the band camp as the adult staff is as well. And it has worked very well for us over the past 10 to 15 years now. We've been employing this leadership training, very formal training that we do with our student leaders.
How about anybody that teaches general music? I'd be very curious, we can talk about this in sort of large ensemble settings, but what about in the general music classroom? Do you see leadership in there, or do you do anything purposeful to try to develop leadership there?
I have kids that, they start, I get them in 7th grade, and that's when I start with them. And you start to see a little bit of those who have a little propensity for leadership because they're outgoing and they communicate well. And I start using them with just little things like, help me move the piano, help me do this. And then you build that on that. And when I do my guitar ukulele unit, they usually catch on quicker, and then we subdivide into small groupings, and they're the ones, okay, help this person do this. Even when we're doing our music writing and note reading things, if I have kids that are doing better in that, I'll pair them up with some who are struggling. And they can explain it in a way that maybe the kid gets better, than me explaining it, because I know it so well. And sometimes those kids are so good, they end up pretty much taking over sometimes. The kids are asking them questions, which to me, when a kid can teach another child, that's like a victory. When we get to step back and watch that all happen, I love that, because their growth is happening on two parts. Your leaders are getting confidence and building confidence, and the kids who are struggling are being lifted by a classmate rather than me. And sometimes, maybe I'm too much for them, or maybe I'm, at the teacher thing, and they just like it. I don't know, sometimes it just works better. But I do that in general music a lot. I find, and it's not always the same child. Depending on the unit I'm doing, sometimes it's a different kid, and I try to rotate it through. And sometimes I take the absolute shyest person, and I'll have them come and be, take attendance. They can at least help me take attendance that day, because my classes are very large, 35 to 40 kids. And so if they're taking attendance while I'm getting things going, it gives them a leadership role as well. And they don't have to say a word. And so some of the quiet ones like that.
And I think that's a really good point too. It's not just like you mentioned the propensity to, kind of be a little outgoing or confident, and they're not afraid to stand up. But it's also, I think, incumbent of us to look for the quieter students and say, they're probably great leaders too. We were talking a little bit earlier, Tina, about introverted and extroverted personality, and how that doesn't necessarily equate to a good leader. That there can certainly be a difference. Everyone can make a difference in that way, but sometimes it's on us to pull that out or to give the opportunity. Sometimes I think that's so much of it, like who's going to talk first in these sessions, like who's going to be that, okay, I'll talk first, go, and or, oh, Scott will just fill the time because that's how it works. So it's just making sure that everybody has a chance to have a voice in our classes, in various groups, in PMEA, and whatever we're talking about. I think that's really important.
And I think what this virtual world that many of us are still teaching in is that I found in my general music classes, the use of the breakout rooms and putting students in small groups and having them choose a leader that's going to kind of collate whatever the group is working on and then report back when we bring the groups back together is given a great opportunity, things that we can use perhaps going forward when we return to maybe more normal environments for our teaching. But I think there's a lot to be learned from this virtual world in developing leadership.
Yeah, for sure. Well, anybody else have anything they want to share about student leadership or anything that you discovered about yourselves along the way? Here we good to move on to the next thing? Certainly don't want to cut anybody off. So one of the things I'd asked you to do for this module was to take a look at the strategic plan and see where you may be interested in getting involved. And it might not be something specific, but it might just be like, I have an interest in this sort of thing. And maybe it's, curriculum, or maybe it's, mentoring, or, there's a lot of things in the strategic plan that you could take a look at. And before we get into that little piece of a discussion, and I'll probably kick it over to Phil and Tina to talk more about strategic plan and where that's headed and how we're doing on things. But before we do that, one of the big pieces in our strategic plan is advocacy. And I wanted to make sure that you all were aware that this in March, there is a campaign for Music in Our Schools Month, Music in Our Schools Month, but it's also going to be a national campaign, and we're doing virtual Hill visits with this. And so we're going to be setting up various meetings and so on with representatives. So I wanted to make sure you all knew that you could be involved with advocacy. And if any of you are interested in even just coming on to one of the meetings and observing, or if you feel like, hey, I'd love to participate, we can help you get ready. And most of it's just sort of sharing a story or whatever. But I thought this group would be a great, group to be involved in this. Normally this happens on Capitol Hill in June with NAFME, and we're all there together, and it's kind of this big rally, and it's our advocacy day. Well, they're spreading it all out over a month, and it's a part of this Arts Are Essential campaign, if you've seen that at all out and about. If not, I'll definitely send something to everybody, but it's partnered with NAFME and NAM and NFHS and all of there's hundreds of arts organizations that are part of this, but all of the 50 states that have MEAs, like PMEA, would be represented by Mark Despotakis is going to be our leader for our team. And then what would happen is we'll get various meetings scheduled throughout the month of March, and folks can join in and talk to the legislatures about what's important about music education. And there are some specific asks that the Arts Are Essential campaign has put together in terms of federal funding and support for the arts and that sort of thing. So there's some big picture things, but a lot of what really makes a difference with this advocacy campaign, and I've noticed this over the years, is the personal stories of how music makes a difference for kids and how it makes a difference for you all individually. A lot of times we'll take collegiates on board, and some of you aren't so far removed from being in college, right? And to hear that story of how you're just getting started in your career, what you hope to do with a career in music education, And so before we talk about the whole big strategic plan, I just wanted you to know this event is coming up next month, and you are all invited to be part of that and be, if you're interested. It's not going to be an assignment for the group, but if that's something that you just, hey, I really find that advocacy, I know it's important, I'm interested, how can I get involved? Well, this is something you could do. And even if it's just to tune into one of the meetings and watch it happen, we would introduce you, but you wouldn't even have to talk necessarily if you didn't want to, but you would certainly be welcome to be part of that team. So anyhow, I'll put some information out to everybody about that, and if you're interested, you can just email back and we'll make sure we connect you with Mark and how that's going to unfold. And I'm going to kick it over to Phil and to give us a little more, if I don't anything more about that, or just about kind of where things are with strategic plan and areas that maybe people might be involved with.
Well, to start off with, the strategic plan for this year was we were supposed to actually start looking at the next 5 years and get the new strategic plan up. But with the way everything was going this year and everybody's getting 10,000 new things on their plate, we decided to take one thing off it, and we pushed the planning for the new strategic plan back a year. So we're going to be starting that coming up this coming year. So if you are interested in any of those things, we are more than happy to get you involved in those things. We've been looking. I think the last time we really sat down and talked about it, though, was the year before when Tina was still president, and we sat down and we looked at everything, said, okay, we're here with that, we're good with that, we need to go on with this a little bit more, and that's probably a little bit easier, I guess, when you can actually sit down together. We can do it on Zoom, but we're hoping to be able to get that moving a little bit more again, and looking more towards, like NAFME has told us to. I still can't get used to saying that and being allowed to say that. It's so much fun. But with NAFME, with the looking towards getting things a little bit more leveling the playing field, so to speak, and getting more minority involvement in everything. And I know up in like PA here, it's sometimes a little bit more difficult, especially out like where I am. I mean, minority populations are not that are really minority populations. I mean, so so if you want to get a more equal look in PMEA, well, we're not going to get that from my area, for simply because that's not what my area looks like. My area looks very much like me. So I mean, we have to look in other places, like more towards Philly, more towards Pittsburgh, to do that. But that's one area that I think we really do need to look at, and getting equity a little bit more involved in there. But I mean, we're looking at ways that we can serve the profession still, and we've tried to do that, and I think we've done as much as we can so far this year with all of the webinars and the summer conference and what we've got planned for the spring conference, the PMEA festivals and all. So, but yeah, it's kind of a little bit on hold right now, but we are planning on looking at taking it for the next step coming up starting this summer.
Just to add to that, I think, one thing COVID forced us to do things that we weren't normally going to be doing, working with audition procedures through Submittable, since we couldn't do them in person. So we developed that, working and developing the Little Kids Rock program, and things like that. So we've been trying to develop new programs. I think because of COVID and because we're doing virtual conferences, we're now brainstorming about how to up the ante as far as elementary, middle school general, and how can we as an association serve those people more. And we know that's been a deficit a little bit for the past few years. And if we can use Submittable and do online auditions, we might free up a whole Saturday, and that could be an all elementary day with maybe a concert for a children's chorus and things like that. So there are so many ideas swirling around, and I'm going to say that might be one of the positive things that came out of COVID, is that we've learned digital more, so therefore we can can do more digitally, such as Zoom calls rather than meeting in person, consolidating on time, bringing in people from all parts of the state, heck, across the country at the same time to talk and to brainstorm and to share ideas. And I think that's one thing we can take away and should take away from, what's happened this past year, and moving forward with our strategic plan. I think we need to like re-look at how we see ourselves, the association and music, and how this is all going to morph forward. And I think that's going to be a big part of our future planning, because I don't see digital and virtual going away completely. It will always be there. So how are we going to use that to our advantage? Hiring Mark Despotakis was huge because he's really good at all of that social media and digital stuff. And he's got a podcast now. Who'd have thunk it? PMEA's got podcasts, So, I mean, I think we're moving forward without, and we haven't done it in the parameters, so to speak, of a strategic plan, but we're still making great strides, in my opinion. And the collaborative effort that we've had amongst all of the leadership this year, we talk all the time. All the time. It's not just waiting for in-person meetings. We text dang near every day. So the communication has upped because we've been apart so much. And so that's one thing that's been good about all of this, but we are definitely not standing still.
Yeah, and so I don't know, to the point of the Leadership Academy folks, so you get to hear a little bit about where things are with the strategic planning process. If there are areas, and we don't necessarily have to go around tonight and everybody say what you're interested in, but I think it would be important that you signed up for this, and I'm not, everybody signs up for their own reasons. Some of you might be getting ready to take on a role within your PMEA district, be the district president or, and so on. And maybe that's why you signed up, because, somebody from your officers said, hey, this is a good thing. Or maybe you signed up just because you're interested in leadership, or maybe you signed up because you want to know more about PMEA. But regardless of why you signed up, we're hoping that you're going to continue to be involved, and to whatever capacity you're able to be involved. And we know some people, can be an officer and serve on the board and do all those things. And other people may just say, like, I really like curriculum. Where can I fit into some curriculum things? Or I really am interested in mentoring, or whatever it may be, and maybe some of you just, wanted to know more about PMEA, and that's so on and so forth. But, think about where you may see yourself, if not right now, maybe in a couple of years, or, and so on. So that conversation is going to continue about, not necessarily just about strategic planning, but about how you all can continue to be involved in the work, because the one of the goals of this program is to expand the leadership of PMEA, and it's not all about titles and the elected leadership. There's a lot of space for people to be involved in the work of PMEA and the doing of PMEA. And so, just know that door will be open for all of you, as you go along, because we, before you know it, the year will be over. We'll be finished with this program, and you're on to your next thing. And so we would certainly love to have you guys continue to be involved in any capacity you feel comfortable and you want to contribute. So we'll come back to that next time around. And I see we're just at 7:00 here. And it comes up at every meeting of this group about elementary, that has come up. So if anybody, keep those ideas rolling. You want to talk about that. So before we sign off, I think we did this last time, and I think it'd be good to do it again. Just, your victory of the week, what are you feeling positive about, whether it's school related or personally, just kind of where are you feeling, your victory for the week or weeks. We haven't seen each other, so if it's last week, no big deal. So David, start us off.
Sure. So we've been in a hybrid system essentially since January, with A and B going every other week. Next, not tomorrow, but one Monday after that, we're starting. I think it's 4 through 6 is coming back full in person, and I teach 6th grade as my youngest grade, so I'm really excited to actually be able to see all, 18 of my sixth graders together in a room instead of, 3 to 10 at a time. Really looking forward to that so they don't feel alone. That's it.
Cool. Heather.
I made all my second graders cry. We were having a great discussion in my elementary classes because I just started this new long-term thing about a week and a half ago. So I was getting to know all the kids, and we had a great discussion about how music is in every culture. And the reason it's in every culture is because it is the one thing that causes everybody to feel. So I was telling them about a song that makes me cry, and then one of my remote kids remoted in, and this kid, he started, I'm going to cry now too. He started talking about a song that every time he hears it, it reminds him of his dad. And I don't know what happened to his dad, but he just started to sob, and he was like online in front of all of his classmates, and he's just crying. And I told him how brave he is. And after he did, 6 other kids in the class raised their hand. Oh, this song makes me think of my grandpa, and it makes me cry every time. And this song makes me think of my dog. And it was the whole class, and we're all like teary-eyed and stuff. But it was really a good moment. It wasn't as horrible as it probably could have been. It was really a nice moment because they all recognized it. They all recognized what music does for us. And hopefully they can continue that.
Yeah, powerful. Kelsey, I'm just picking around how my screen looks. So Kelsey.
Yeah. So because of the hybrid schedule, I have a 7th grade class that's just 3 boys, which is just a funny dynamic. But they're all really sweet boys. And the amazing thing is they're really great at practicing. So like we do little like bass lines on the piano or something. And normally with big classes, I give them like 5 minutes to practice. But I know that a lot of it is going to be like, they practice for a little bit and then kind of get distracted and play around. But like when I ask these guys to practice, they just sit there and get better at it. It's really amazing. So that's kind of fun.
Cool. Very cool. Lisa.
Well, this is actually pretty exciting. We've been using the Quaver's Marvelous World of Music, but just the essentials package for years. It's just like the bare bones, the bare minimum that you can get. And we've all been talking this year, especially because we are still fully remote in my district. And we're saying, oh, like we really want the new package. So like the full curriculum. So I sort of led the brigade for the 5 elementary general music teachers. And we went to the curriculum coordinator, and we explained to him how it just fits right in with the curriculum work we did over the summer. And can we please try it out? And we're getting it. So we have the full Quaver curriculum for next year. So we're really excited.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Phil, what's your victory for the week?
Okay. Well, one of the things I told Abby when I first became president was like, oh my gosh, you mean I have to write those things that go in the articles every time? I hate writing. I can't believe that. And so I just emailed her my message just yesterday. And I feel a little bit better now about what I had written in it, because Dr. Tim just literally took my message and started saying it to you guys tonight. And I was like, nobody's going to believe this, but I said it first. He took about 3 or 4 things that I had right in I was like, no. So I guess I'm on the right path with my letter there. So that's a plus for me.
Cool. Very cool. Scott Cullen.
Well, this has been a challenging week, weather-wise and everything else. I think I think the big success lately has just been the fact that there's a new semester. And I would not go so far as to say hitting my stride. That's not it. But I do feel like I'm getting closer to being in the pocket about understanding hybrid and how to better approach the amount of material I would like to cover with students. I'm getting better at taking the temperature of the room virtually or otherwise, knowing that I know I'd like to do this with you folks, but what's the realistic expectation I can have working with you, that I would like, being very honest with my junior high students and saying, this is what I'd like to be able to do. Do you think we can do this? And they're going to be really honest with you and say, yes or no. And I had originally thought we could do these 4 pieces. And I said, folks, I get the feeling that, just checking the pulse here, 3 is probably an immediately, yes, we will make that agreement. We will do that with you. We'll work with you on that one. So, I am, this new semester I have better focus because I'm coming into it with experience and coming into it not with naivete. So and everything people have been saying about leadership tonight has been great. A lot of the things that I would have offered have been like, yeah, I would say that too. I say that too. At some point along the line, and I don't know if it was said tonight, I just want to throw in my 2 cents. One of the big things that I always think about with leadership is you can't lead from behind. That you can only lead out front. And if you are not willing to do the things you're asking people to do, and if you are not willing to take the responsibility we want to take responsibility for successes, but you have to take responsibility for failures. And that's something that I think every leader has to grapple with, and that the only way that you can really lead is out front. If you're leading from behind, you're a boss. You're cracking the whip, and that's not what you want to do. A leader is someone who's out front saying, follow me, let's go.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Thank you. Aaron.
Well, we're talking about the highs. It was actually more of a really humorous thing that happened to me. And, it taught me a new lesson on how to interact with students. But as I was grading assignments, our students, record a little excerpt of something, and then, they record it, and I watch the video, and I record a little, like a feedback on Loom, a video for them. So one of my students, and she's a good player, but I was listening to it, and she was just not, you could tell she was rushing through it, very just like, it sounded like she wasn't putting in her full effort. Well, she got to the end of the video and it waited a couple of moments, and she dropped the biggest F-bomb really loud. So I guess one of my high that day was trying to record my feedback video for her without laughing. But what really made it special is when I finally got to see her in school, I was like, and she was cracking up so much. And then she told her friends what happened, and I'm like, so it was a nice experience. We built a little bit of a relationship there over something bad like that.
Yeah, that's great. Tina.
Speaking of F-bombs, no, this does actually correlate. We have a second period enrichment every day, and kids, it's a 30-minute period, and kids do like makeup tests and things like that, meet with teachers. Well, I decided, I have a modern band. They're called the CL Six Strings that I've been working with just after school. There is not a class. And I decided it's time for them to start playing regularly. So I asked, and they said, yes, we can be in the auditorium, we'll play, and whoever wants to show up can show up during that enrichment time. So we started Performance Fridays, and they did the first one. It was they didn't do so well. And that was 3 weeks ago. And then the next week, the marching band was in the gym and people could come in and watch their show. And they had jazz band and she did yakety sax with a small group. It was fun and people loved it. So now it's the 3rd week, and this was this past Friday, and my modern band came back on, and they played some amazing pieces. They rotated through, these kids play everything, and they did House of the Rising Sun. They did Gary Clark Jr. Come Together. They did Clocks, and they did a song from Oasis. Anyway, in House of the Rising Sun, the one kid who was going to sing the last verse up, and we had the organ going. The kids are playing great. And aside from it, the concert was great. He messed up the words and dropped the F-bomb over the microphone. And there's my superintendent in the front row. He's positive he's getting suspended. She walks up and goes, "Nice job." We're like, okay, moving on. He's like, "I thought she was coming up to suspend me." But we now are doing Performance Fridays every Friday for this period, and anyone can come down. We started out with maybe 15 kids. We had the auditorium socially distanced, all spaced out. They're taped off. There's tape that you have to sit on those chairs. It was packed. It was full. We had a full house. And next week the dance team will go, and then the band's going to come back, and we're doing it every Friday because I'm tired of not playing. My choir is going to do a little thing. We're doing a salute to COVID. So that's our victory. We're pretty excited. We're actually performing again, even though for a small facet.
Nice, nice, nice. Emily.
So I got a text halfway through Wednesday from a 4th grade teacher. She sent me a picture of one of her vocabulary tests that she gave. And one of the questions was, according to Mrs. Broombaugh, why is tempo important when she's conducting the band? Because tempo was one of their vocabulary words. And one of my 4th grade trumpet players responded by saying, I'm going to read it. She says it is important because if we play the tempo together, we sound musical. And if we don't, we sound like a hunk of junk, was exactly what he wrote. And I was like, I asked my student teacher, have I ever told them they sound like a hunk of junk? And he was like, no, I don't think so. I was like, okay, watch out for that in the future. But I thought that was funny.
That's great. Kids say the darndest things. All right, Sarah Gilbert.
This has happened today, which was super awesome. So I'm in my final semester with my graduate program. And so I'll be graduating with choral conducting in May. And so a part of that, I have to give a recital, right, as my final piece. And so in preparation for that, I was thinking about how I could go about that in planning that I may not be able to use my student ensembles. And so I've gathered this choir together of 8 people that are friends, but that are music teachers and music therapists and different musicians that I know that are friends with me. And so they're all like, yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, I need to do something musical and I need to like sing. And so they've been working on their own these last couple of weeks. And so today we got together physically and sang this really good choral music. And it was just like, I had so many moments where I was just smiling and they all were smiling and just filled you up. It was just, yeah, a great couple of hours to be able to feel that again, that we've been missing. So.
Awesome. Abby, what's your win of the week?
Nothing PMEA related because I totally missed a deadline on Friday, but it's okay, we're fine. I became an aunt again on Wednesday night, right before the snow came, 11:30. My brother and his wife had their first son. They have a 2.5-year-old daughter, but now the Bauer name gets to continue because he's the only male grandkid on, I had girls, so we were really excited.
Awesome. Kyle.
Just a quick recap of my situation. It's very interesting hearing, who's been hybrid versus totally out and everything. My school never went out totally. It's been hybrid in the sense that anyone that can be online can go online, or if you're quarantined, you're online. And it's been great in a lot of ways, to always be seeing the students, but it's also been, nerve wracking whenever, you're not getting the full information of who's, positive, and kids are being pulled out. And it's just like, not knowing if you're exposed or not. Well, our administration did a really great thing and set up vaccination for us, for our school district, just organized it on their own with a local pharmacy. We had our first dose in January, got our second dose this past week. So my wife and I are fully vaccinated. And there's a new sense of like just feeling good about being there in person.
That's awesome. Just asked about that in our school district, and I said maybe next month, hopefully next month. So I don't know, we'll see. That's good.
Yeah, we asked our super, and he said that he quote unquote went rogue, and just got it. He set it up on his own, so we're really thankful for that.
Absolutely. Henry.
I guess my big win for this week has been that, we've all of our band and wind ensembles have still been virtual. So last week, after arduous working with our school district pandemic team and our medical consult team I finally got a plan approved to start having in-person music rehearsals, experiences with the kids who want to come in and do this. And we think once we get all the PPE in that we need to have in, and we've been able to reduce our distancing to 9 feet because we were being held to this 20-foot indoor distancing, which was impossible. It looks like hopefully by the second week of March, we're going to have some kids in the building making music that play wind instruments. So that was our big win, and hopefully that'll be the case in mid-March.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a school win, which was I had a student and a 9th grader say, "Mr. Sheehan, will you teach me bassoon?" And so that's always exciting when you can get bassoon players, so I was excited for that. My personal win for the week was that we booked a trip to Disney in June over my daughter's birthday. She's graduating high school, and her wish was to go to Disney, and we talked it over with, and we said, okay, well, we'll go. So we're going to do the COVID Disney experience and see what that's all about. So, yep, we're headed there. And another win for today, because we have a birthday boy here, is Scott Cullen, his birthday today. So a big happy birthday. So that's certainly a win that we got to spend some time with you. Thank you so much for joining in. You could have taken this one off. It would have been all right. And before we go, I'm going to take 2 seconds and show you this. I'll send it to you, but it's worth showing. You all did your leadership quotes, and so you don't need to read this at all, but check out what TJ couldn't be here tonight. Sadly, his wife's father passed away, so TJ is part of our crew here, and so he put this together instead of a quote. He made this whole diagram, which was really, really cool. I thought that just let that up there for a second. I'll share this whole document with you guys. And then I think it was Lisa that did this, which was really cool. So I always love when we can kind of turn ideas into graphics and, just another way to look at things. And so, again, anything that you all want to share for moving forward, whether it's with PMEA and strategic planning or the Leadership Academy or anything, we just love your ideas. So I will definitely share that whole document with you guys. So I know we're a little over our hour, but thank you guys very much. We so appreciate everything you're doing for your kids, your students, for music education, for PMEA. And we wish you all well. We'll be in touch. As you know, our last module will be centered mostly around culturally responsive teaching and some of the initiatives in diversity, equity, access, and inclusion that are happening here in Pennsylvania, and the work that PMEA is doing. And I'll share a little bit about the work that NAFME is doing, and just kind of that seems to be the big thrust right now. And I don't, it's funny, people like to call it a trend, and it's really not a trend. And I won't get into all of that right now, but we'll be taking a look at all those that work next time. So thanks so much. Have a great week. Wish you all well. And please be in touch if there's anything we can ever do to help out. So have a great night. Thanks, guys.